Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. and that's Central Time, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You can find us on television. We are syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com and all the social media sites. You can go ahead and get away with us there, too. Facebook.com/D Fiesel. You can find us on YouTube, just anywhere there's social media. But thank you again so much for watching. Also, continue sending those emails. I sure do. It makes my day. Send emails to Donna@DonnasEdge.com, Donna@DonnasEdge.com. If you'd like to be part of the giveaways, again, Donna@DonnasEdge.com. We do a lot of giveaways on Friday. So again, thank you so much for your support of 20 years we've been doing this. So again, thank you so much. Now, one of the emails came from one of our listeners. Her name is Veronica, and she said, I would be interested in how you make vinegar. She saw a show about a year ago where the process was going on. So I'm going to give you, this is a website that you can go to, and it's fermentpittsburgh.com. It's a prepper who lives out in the Pittsburgh area. Yeah, believe it or not, preppers live out there too. And so they have a real good recipe for that. But I'm also going to give you a few little tips and tricks ahead of what I do when I'm making my own vinegars. Vinegars are so good for you. They really are. You need to catch up on it. Even doctors now are admitting a little bit of vinegar in your diet is real good for your heart health. So go on ahead and check that out. Don't take my word for it. Go on ahead and check it out. Okay, so I wanted to show you, first of all, it just starts with an apple or any kind of fruit. It doesn't matter. I'll have to tell you the best vinegars I have for salad dressings are the ones that come from bell peppers. They are awesome. And it's just typically scraps you would throw away. Now I give some of it to my chicken. So I just wanted to let you know that this is a great start. Go to the grocery store, and a lot of times now in the South, we call them buggies, but you folks up north will respond by saying a cart. So you can go to a cart or a buggy, and at the very front of the store is usually right when you walk in is where you usually find the cart of marked down produce. Take advantage of it. I do. It's like free stuff. So you may pay $1 or so for a bag of fruit that might be going just a little bit on the waney side, but that's okay. You can use that for vinegar. So let me show you. First of all, this is the finished product. Now you hear, Bragg's vinegar and some of those vinegars that have the mother in them. That's why they're so good for you. So now I haven't shaken this, but you can see right down here at the bottom, that's the mother, and we'll explain that just a little bit later on in the segment. Now this happens to be lavender. And you can use these vinegars for anything. Lavender is going to help you sleep at night. I'm into herbs, okay? So I'm an herbalist. So this will help you sleep at night. Now, I wanted to show you a breakdown. And this is apple cider vinegar right here. Now, this is still processing. See that weird looking gunky thing that's right here, right there? That's the mother. And I'll take you through the process. And I'm going to tell you how inexpensive this is to make. And this vinegar, all right. But I wanted to also show you when you're in the process of making vinegar, at least a month. But if you can go longer than that, that would be great. So I first started processing this one November the 15th of this past year. So November the 15th. So this has been going on for quite a while. And the longer you keep it in here processing, the better it's going to be for you, because all those little microorganisms and all those little things are working there to help you with your health. Now you see the mother also on top of this. I'll strain this out, okay, because we're not going to keep all of the apple peels and the cores and all of those things. So listen, if you live in the city and you're in a big skyscraper and you're in New York or Chicago or somewhere, and you're thinking, no, that's just for farmers. It's for you too. Because you go to the grocery store, now hopefully you're buying your produce from a farmer's market, where it's going to be no pesticides have been used. That's what makes it so healthy. So I don't use pesticides in my gardens. And so just having it here, using table scraps is how you got to do. And what you'll do is I like to fill mine. Now, the more you fill it with scraps, the stouter it's going to be and the better it's going to be for you. You can even mix. So let's say you have maybe you went to the farmer's market and you got some peaches and you got some pears and you got some apples, whatever, and you just have some scraps left over and you really don't want to put it into a compost pile. Fill it up. You can mix vegetables and fruits as well. So anyway, I like to go about halfway up. Now, a lot of the recipes say go just about, about a quarter, but you can do more than that. Okay. I know from experience, and it definitely works. You'll be healthier. Your weight loss, you might not lose a whole bunch of weight, but it'll be a good weight management tool for you. So I like to go about halfway, maybe sometimes a little bit more, depending on how much I have. Then what I do, I'll go ahead and put some sugar in it, about a half cup. This depends on the sweetness and of the vegetable or of the fruit. Now, I will say this, for the bell peppers, there's not a whole lot of sweet there. So I definitely put a little bit more sugar there, because what's going to happen is it's all going to mix together, and on time, it's going to make some awesome, awesome vinegar for you. Okay. So I want to dissolve the sugar too, okay? So I'm going to give it a good little stir. I'm going to fill it up all the way almost to the top. And you got to allow, because it's going to start this little bubbling process. And this is a real fun thing to do with the kids or your grandkids, okay? So they can see vinegar in the process of the whole thing. So I put mine pretty close. Now I leave about an inch, maybe about an inch and a half from the top up here, so it can bubble, because if it bubbles, it's going to make a mess. You're going to see bubbles coming all the other side of your jar. Okay, now don't use a lid. This is only to be used after it's done its thing, okay? So what you want to do is get a coffee filter. You can use a piece of cloth, maybe old scrap material, something like that. And I like to use a little coffee, right? Because it's paper, and it breathes, I think, easier. And then I'll get a rubber band and I'll put that on top so it stays on there secure, because when it starts doing the bubbling process, and they'll do that after a few days, maybe about a week, maybe a little bit less than a week, and that just keeps everything in place. The reason I like to leave about an inch and a half or so right here at the top is I can leave this same one. I've not changed this. Well, maybe one time. I think I changed it once since November 15th of last year, and it's still doing its thing. And again, you can leave this in a cool, dry, dark place. Okay, it's really important that sunlight doesn't hit it with the recipe that I'm about to give you. There are some recipes that want to be out in the sun, and you can do that. And that's especially good for your cleaning vinegars. If you can find a good, secure place where the animals are not going to try to get into it, and put it outside into where the sun is just really going to penetrate, there'll be another recipe for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk, because I'm almost through about half the show already. Okay, so making vinegar, it can be, now it's going to smell, okay? It's going to go through several processes of a terrible smell, but just keep at it, okay? I'm just telling you the things that you're not going to see on the internet. Start with a sugary liquid, like I just mentioned. And the sugar, again, is going to depend. If it's a sweet, sweet apple, you won't use as much sugar. I would say you would probably use about a half cup of sugar. Now, if it's, half. So if it's a tart apple, some of you Granny Smiths can be tart. So if it's a tart apple, just kind of take a little taste of it and see what it tastes like to you. So if it's tart, you want to use 1 cup sugar. And now this right here is 2 quarts right here. Okay, so that I'm giving you the recipe for 2 quarts. And again, you can just kind of make it as it goes. Now, does it work every single time? Most of the time it does. Okay. I've had a couple of times when I have used fruit from the grocery store instead of a farmer's market or my own fruit, and it didn't work out as good. So I'm just going to say, if you go to a farmer's market where no pesticides and that kind of thing has been on it, you'll have, I'm going to say, 100% success rate at this. Again, buying your fruits and vegetables, you're not really sure if they used pesticides or not. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so we've got that sugary liquid going on there. Let the sugars ferment. It'll kind of ferment into alcohol, and it's kind of like a wild yeast. It's almost the same process. You get drunk on it? No. I'm just saying it goes through the same process that it would be if you were making alcohol. Okay, then you want to have that continued air exposure. And again, that's why it's important to use either say a coffee filter or material. Again, do not put a lid on it, okay, because it's got to get air. And that helps it to breathe and it comes alive. That sounds like I'm making Frankenstein here, but that's how it goes. It has to go through that process. Okay, and that will be eaten by the native asobator, turning it into vinegar, and then boom, you got vinegar. Okay, now here's a simple overview. What you can do, and sometimes I do this and sometimes I don't. It just depends on how much time I have. You can use any kind of fruit or vegetable. Haven't tried strawberry, but I'm going to do that this year. So we're going to go through a show. As soon as the strawberries come in, we're going to make some strawberry vinegar. I bet that would be really, really good too on your salads. And it beats, and I love ranch dressing just like y'all do with cream cheese and all that stuff. But this is so much better for you, and you're going to love the taste. Now, before, Phil, my husband, would say, I don't want no vinegar dressing. And so I just quit making vinegar dressing because it was vinegar. It was vinegar and then a little bit of olive oil. But since I have been using like bell peppers, he actually likes it. He really does. So does he like it as much as ranch? Probably not. But anyway, he does like it. Okay, so I continue to make it. Okay, now you want to crush the fruit as much as you can in a vessel, whatever. You can put it into a blender if you'd like to do that. And then you want to leave it until it tastes like vinegar in this right here. You want to strain the solids too, by the way. I forgot to tell you about that. Okay, I like to use cheesecloth, and I get a couple pieces of cheesecloth because I want as much of the essence of the fruit out of it as I possibly can, so it looks like this. Now, after it sets, you'll still see the mother in there, okay? So it's still good for you. So you'll get that. And you want to shake it every time you use it, by the way, because see the mother, how it settles down there on the bottom. So you want to shake it. And, and my little recipe for every single day is about 2 tablespoons of my vinegar, and then I fill it up into a little juice glass, and it's probably about 3 ounces, something like that. You can put less if you want to get started with less until you get used to the taste. I happen to love vinegar. I love making pickles because I get to smell the vinegar more than I eat the pickles. So I don't know. I'm just one of those rare cases, but you get used to it after a while, and it is so good for you. Let's go ahead and cut into a commercial break. And we will return in just a few minutes. So y'all hang in there with me, okay? Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community
We
College.
are back. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show for Truth Matters. We're talking about vinegar. And vinegar is just so good for you as far as health-wise. So let's talk about some of that. Now, we talked about preparing the mash, and we talked about controlling the acidity in the homemade vinegar. By the way, if you just happen to get a tart apple and maybe you didn't put enough sugar in it, maybe you put a cup and it just still wasn't enough, it's very forgiving. Add another half cup into your vinegar, and I promise you'll start seeing bubbling happening. That's when you know it's doing its thing. Okay, Now, we talked about fermenting, and let's talk about a little bit more about fermenting. I think we need to do that. That's step 2. Once you've got the sugar content and you notice that it starts bubbling, it's doing its things, it does a wild fermentation. In order to employ the native wild yeast, so you're making your own yeast here. You really don't have to do anything. All you got to do is put a cloth on the top of it, the vessel, and a rubber band like I do right here, or just use a string, whatever works with you. But you just want to make sure that it does have contact with the air. Soon there should be some bubbling activity. We talked about that, of the wild yeast, and that's the wild yeast, and it's converting the sugars into alcohol. That's within a few days. And again, it depends on the natural sugars of the fruit. Vegetables are going to take a little bit longer. You will need to add a little bit more sugar to that. Okay, now to expedite the process, what you can do is just mash occasionally just to incorporate the air. And that's what I do about twice a week. What I'll do during the process, I get my wooden spoon, that big old wooden spoon I've got, and I'll take everything off, the covers off, and then I'll just kind of give it a stir just a couple of times during the process. Now, I haven't done anything to this probably in about 3 or 4 months, and it's still working. It's still doing its thing. Again, health-wise, it's so good for you. Now, let's see. At this point, you could strain out the solids if you want to. It's just up to you. It depends on how strong you want it. Basically, the goal is to make the alcoholic beverage go bad. So let's talk about finishing the vinegar. So let's say that you've pureed, or you've mashed your fruit, you've altered the sugar content, and you let it ferment to its heart content, whether it's a couple of weeks or, like I do, months. Now the bubbling has subsided, which means the wild yeast have consumed all of the fermentable sugars available to them, and you're at the max level of the alcohol content. Now, when does the vinegar happen? When you start smelling it and it smells like vinegar. Well, the down is short on it, but let's go on ahead and talk about it a little bit more in detail. Okay, so once the bubbling subsides, you're doing the wild methods to get the fermenting up to par. Now, it could sour or it could take weeks to do that. And again, I told you like my take on it. Now, what if weird things begin to grow on your vinegar? They will. It's part of the natural process. So the cool thing about vinegar, especially we can make sure we make one with sufficient final acidity, is once it becomes vinegar, it's no longer a hospitable environment for insects and moles. It just won't. Consider how vinegar is used as a natural cleaner. There are many cases, and so what the author of this, again, website is fermentpittsburgh.com. Many cases left open container and allowed to process as nature willed it. Now, after enough time, she said she pulled off the garlic top and had wonderful vinegar. So you're going to have some weird looking organisms on top of this before you strain it, before it looks good, okay? Don't let that freak you out. Okay, that's part of the process. All you want to do is get a spoon and just spoon it off. Okay, and let's see if they say the same thing I did. Yeah, okay. After enough time, she says, I pulled the gnarly top off and had wonderful vinegar underneath. I'm not recommending this to anyone, but it's a fun story to tell. So here's what she said in the story. Most likely, if your fermenting mash develops a growth, it will be a white film called clom. Do not despair. It's harmless, and it's typically a product of lower sugar levels. You can always add more sugar, but when the vinegar finally develops, it's likely the clom that will die and settle into the lees. Now, let's talk about tomato vinegar right here. I think I've got time. Oh, yeah, I got plenty of time. Let's see. Okay. Now, she says, when in season, tomatoes are a great candidate for vinegar, and I have done that as well. And I'm just telling you, nothing like it. It's just wonderful. And again, it's good in salad dressings. When you're doing stir fry, or you're doing, let's say like you're doing fajitas, that's a trick ingredient right there. That is the best ingredient you could actually put into those fajitas. So let's say you're using, I always do chicken fajitas, and you can do beef, you can do whatever you want to do. But let's just talk about, we're sauteing the chicken, and I'm cutting the chicken into strips because I want chicken fajitas. Real easy to do. So what you want to do, put a little bit of olive oil, let it get a little bit hot. And then when the olive oil starts doing this wavy thing in your iron skillet is where I prefer you do anything you like, but I do the iron skillet. When it starts doing this little wavy thing right there, go ahead and put that chicken in there and let it cook for a good 2 or 3 minutes on each side and turn it over. Now, when you've turned it over and it is browned on both sides, go on ahead and add that tomato vinegar in there. It's going to add such an awesome flavor to it. It's going to be not really earthy, but you're going to really have that good tomato taste in there. And it's going to be good when you put that tomato sauce. Now, you want to cook it down just a little bit. Put whatever you want. I usually do probably about a 1/4 cup of my vinegar when I'm sauteing. And it's good to do on beef if you're doing any kind of tomato product. Let's say you're doing lasagna, you're doing spaghetti and meatballs, anything like that. Tomato vinegar is a must in my kitchen. I gotta have it. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit more. She says when seasoned tomatoes are a great candidate for vinegar, I slice and crush my overripe and split heirloom tomatoes. Now, again, using heirloom, that's what I use. I have no pesticides. My seeds are like completely clean. They're seeds that I've saved for years. The last time she said I got this a reading of 6 bricks, and the tomatoes provided plenty of their own liquid. Now, if I ferment until all the bubbling activity has ceased, I get 3% alcohol tomato wine. So be careful there. So letting that continue, it'll be 3% vinegar. Okay, that's not too bad. And I can assume, even if you don't measure, you're going to use ripe tomatoes. I never measure. And you'll get something similar. She says, so if I want to shoot for 5% acidity, I could just add about 48 grams of sugar. That's what I always do. To my quart of mashed tomatoes to get an additional 2% more. Now, this is something she does, which I think is pretty remarkable as well. She does celery vinegar, and I'm going to try it. I can only imagine how good that is going to absolute taste when on your salads and when you're doing sautés and that kind of thing. So puree enough celery for a quart of mash. This will vary, but it can take roughly 1 full head. Then top it off with water, just enough to cover, and stir in 120 grams of sugar until it's dissolved, and then on with the fermentation. I just can't tell you, using a fruit vinegar is so good in the mornings. I love blueberry vinegar. So let's talk about that for a minute. I think we've got time. We do. Okay, so let's talk about homemade blueberry. Blueberry vinegar first began, she said, as a failed attempt at blueberry wine, and she turned it into vinegar. But now it's an annual tradition and the primary vinegar we use for everything. And blueberries, remember, are really good for the brain up here. So I need all that I can get. Making sugar is a perfect use, or making vinegar is a perfect use for old, blemished, and forgotten fruit. So if you just want your salad to be absolutely perfect looking and you put blueberries in your salad or blueberry waffles or blueberry pancakes, whatever you do with blueberries, and you just want it to look pretty, okay, save the old ones, the ones that kind of have a little blemish on it, maybe the ones that have cracked open a little bit more than they should, and use those for your vinegar, okay? Again, don't throw anything away. Make vinegar out of it. Okay, so this is the recipe for a sweet blueberry vinegar. It is excellent finishing vinegar, or you can dress it up on salads. I do like I do in the morning, get a couple of tablespoons and fill it up with water and drink it on down. Now, you can do this either before you have breakfast or after you have breakfast. It seems to set my stomach just a little bit too hard, but that's just my stomach. Some people can go ahead and drink it before they eat anything. I prefer have my coffee first, and then I'm going to have my breakfast. And then after I have breakfast, while I'm washing up the dishes, then I'll go ahead and do my vinegar. Okay, let's see. The essential tools for alcohol ferments cost $20. But if you're not obsessed with precision, you can do it without one too. I use no tools. I just use jars and the wood spoon to stir. That's all you have to have. Okay, now for every gallon of fresh blueberries, you're going to need sugar, and you're going to need about a 7/8 gallon of water, just a tad less than just a little bit less than a full gallon. Again, this is 2 quarts right here. I would go down about 1.5 inches and fill the fruit up first. Then you want to put your water in there and your sugar, by the way. Now to start, you want to load up the blueberries in a vessel. and you want to give them kind of a mash. You can use a potato masher for this. You can use a fork because there's going to be blueberries that are just a little bit overripe, which is perfect again for the vinegar. And you can just use a fork. You don't have to go out and buy fancy stuff to do this. I don't. I just use what I got. Now, after you mash it up, it's going to be like a real mash. And again, you can do this with apples and pears that are overripe, all of those things as well. Add the sugar, add the water and the sugar, and give it a good stir. Make sure that the sugar is dissolved. You can certainly dissolve the sugar before adding, but the lazy method is always refreshing. I like to just do mine as I go. The sugar will dissolve eventually anyway. So cover the container with a breathable cover. She mentions using a t-shirt affixed with a rubber band to keep insects out. That's all you want to do. You just want to keep the insects out because they're going to be a magnet. They're going to want to get into that. But again, a coffee filter is something I can throw away. Okay, now after about 48 hours, she said, I'll measure the sugar and I like to shoot for 22 to 24 bricks, which is the equivalent of a wine's starting bricks. And bricks just means recipe. Okay. Now measuring this isn't necessary as the recipe water and sugar amounts will get you closer enough. But again, after you make so much of this, it'll just kind of start making sense and you'll notice the bubbling process. Again, the first day, if it doesn't start bubbling in 2 days, I'd add more sugar and just give it a good stir. Now, soon enough, the blueberries will start to ferment from wild yeast. It's helpful. It's a helpful thing to come by and stir the top once, twice a day, or as you remember it. And I do that. I give it a good stir for the first couple of weeks. Then after that, just a couple of times a week does it. The fermentation will push the blueberry solids to the top. So we need to break up that cap every so often. So don't worry about using a clean tool to do it. We're just making vinegar after all, by the way. Okay, now the process, she says, we like a sweet blueberry vin, so we like to catch it before the fermentation has completed. However, you could very well just let it ferment to dry all the time. Regardless, when the time is right, add a little acetic acid with a splash of live vinegar if you'd like to do that. Over the hill, or you can do, by the way, I saved the vinegar mother just in case I have something like a vegetable that's not fermenting. I'll go ahead and save some, say from peaches. You can save it, put it in the freezer, and then just put it in something that's not fermenting. You can actually buy the mother if you want to do that. Or you can go buy Bragg's vinegar if you prefer to do that instead of doing it like I do it. But it's a process and it's fun to watch. Just let it sit, whatever you do. Just let it sit. And don't try to overdo it. Don't try to overdo the whole process. Now, taste it occasionally until that one magical day when I use my nose for it. And I taste it. But when I open up that top, or if I walk by that top and I smell vinegar, bingo, the job is done. You can go ahead and take it up if you want to. But me, because I just leave it in there until I'm ready to empty it and divide all the solids out of it. Now, it's a good time to press what can be done by emptying the contents through a pillowcase, or like I do, cheesecloth, or you can just use an old towel. By emptying the contents and then twisting and squeezing it enough until enough of the juice has run out. Now, what's going to happen? That's when the mother is going to start filtering out and going into the vinegar. Again, as you're using it, you need to shake it really good so that you can get the benefits of the mother that's in the vinegar, just like with Bragg's. Okay, and after a couple of days, rack off the solids accumulated at the bottom by carefully pouring the liquid out until it reaches the sludge. Discard the sludge and store your delicious vin away in a lidded container as we need you to do that. Now, these are some recipes that this lady has tried, and I'm just going to tell you they're very much in line with what I do when I'm making my vinegar. Okay, I'm looking at the clock. Looks like I've got to let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Send me an email and let me know how your vinegars turn out. That's Donna@donnasedge.com. Or maybe you didn't quite understand something that I was talking about here on this show pertaining to vinegars, or any show. Send an email. I'll be glad to answer those as quick as I can. Donna@donnasedge.com. Donna@donnasedge.com. Thank you so much for watching. You make my day.